Today's episode of the Resleevables is brought to you by StarCityGames.com, where you can save 10% on all Magic the Gathering singles right now. Like, you can go over to StarCityGames.com/sale, S-A-L-E, and you can just start the browsing. Just let the process happen. Now, I did say all. There is an asterisk. We're going to say no 10% on pre-orders from those Strixhaven cards, the Mystical Archive, all that stuff, because duh. But look, everything else is 10% off. So if you haven't bookmarked the page, StarCityGames.com/sale, do that so you can keep up with our weekly sales every single week. But for right now, 10% off all Magic the Gathering singles, excluding Strixhaven pre-orders. Sale ends Monday, April 5th at 10:59 a.m. East Coast time, where, as you know, a minute later, is it a minute? Yeah, a minute later, 60 seconds, there will be a new sale up, and then I'll tell you about that next week when we do the next episode of the Resleevables. Head there right now. Today's episode of the Resleevables is also brought to you by Coalesce Apparel and Design, the #1 store for Magic the Gathering inspired apparel. Now, if you do follow Coalesce on social media, at CoalesceAD on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, you know that on March 2nd, my birthday, Coalesce Apparel gave 35% off all day long to celebrate me turning 35 years old, because yes, I am old. However, if you missed that sale, which was a one-day thing only, and you're listening to this not on March 2nd, so you definitely missed it, a couple of ways that you can still get a discount on your first order or any additional orders that you do place with the company. Number one, if you do head over to coalesceapparel.shop, first of all, you get to check out all the cool stuff that they're doing over there. But second, if you sign up for their newsletter, you're going to get a gift code coupon via email. It's just kind of an introduction and welcome, and thanks for signing up for our newsletter so you can be kept up with new releases, flash sales, stuff like that. However, if newsletters are not your thing, you can always just use gift code SCG at checkout and save 10% off of your entire order every single time that you do place an order. So whichever way you do want to save on awesome Magic inspired apparel, the place to go is coalesceapparel.shop, and the gift code to use is SCG. Coalesce Apparel and Design. Nobody made what they wanted, so they made it themselves.
Welcome to the 540, a brand new podcast hosted by me, Justin Parnell, and Ryan Overturf.
Each week, we'll focus on a new topic regarding Magic's best format, cube drafting, in the way only two curmudgeons can.
We'll cover draft strategy,
Pick the good ones,
new card evaluation,
determining which cards are the good ones,
design theory,
and plenty of hot takes.
like why Ryan's so wrong about Library of Alexandria.
You know, some people like cards with very low opportunity costs that have a real shot at taking over the game on their own, and other people are just in.
For blistering insights like that, and more.
So much more.
Check us out every week, everywhere you can find podcasts, and right here on StarCityGames.com.
Coming up next, Vanishing, Madness, Morph, Kicker, Echo. What the heck is going on? It's Planar Chaos here on the Resleevables. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Resleevables here on StarCityGames.com. I am your host, make sure we get that clear, host of the podcast, Cedric Phillips, at Cedric A. Phillips on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, various other places. And I am joined by my co-host, who is not the voice of the SCG Tour. He is merely the person on the SCG Tour next to me, Patrick Sullivan at Basic Mountain on Twitter. How are you, bud?
Doing okay, sweating the Avalanche Coyotes game as a white man, almost 40 years old, in the middle of a pandemic. Now seemed like the right time in my life to start gambling on hockey. And so here we are.
Let's just get this party started.
Okay.
Can you name 5 players between those two teams?
I cannot name one player between those two teams.
Is Patrick Waugh still playing goalie?
I don't
for the
believe so.
Avalanche?
I know the Avs are pretty good, and I know that the Coyotes are not very good. That's about what I know.
Okay. And, you know, I would say that's actually accurate from a flavor judge's ruling, as an Avalanche should destroy a Coyote.
Yeah. The problem is walking around. I think that like Colorado and New Jersey are somehow related in terms of teams. Like Colorado's team moved to New Jersey and became the Devils, and then Colorado got their own team, I think, when Quebec lost their team, something like that. Anyhow, sometimes I walk around town in Devils gear because, you know, it's a New Jersey thing, and people in this city really like to talk about hockey, which I don't know anything about. So I have to just like indulge the conversation for 30 seconds and then be like, I actually have no idea what you're talking about at all. I think the Avalanche beat the Devils for the Stanley Cup in like the 90s, and people bring that up sometimes. It's all lost on me. But that doesn't stop me from gambling on it.
Well, that's good, because you shouldn't let anything stop you from doing what you want to do. So that's important. Here in Seattle, I've experienced something similar. It's not apples to apples, but at one point in like the mid 2010s, when I started working out again, I had found some Oregon gear on the cheap at the local like Champ Sports. And so I bought an Oregon zip up and an Oregon mesh shorts. Let me tell you, here in Washington, you either get the, yo, I went to Oregon, let's go Ducks, and in which case I go, I don't care. Or you get the people from University of Washington who are like, fuck those guys. And I go, I didn't go there, I just like the colors.
So that's the University of Oregon that's like basically Nike's ground for awful ideas. Like anything they want to test out, they just slap it on the University of Oregon gear.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Most of their gear just induces color blindness or vertigo for me. So I know that rang a bell somewhere, and it's not surprising to me you were able to find their gear on the ultra cheap, because they just do a bunch of just horrible experiments.
They're just messing around. They just want to see what they can get away with, which, okay, try it out on kids. The NCAA does. So,
right.
You know, it's all the same.
No repercussions. Make them wear you know, like a burlap sack or a barrel with suspenders and push them over a waterfall. The NCAA doesn't care. You can do anything to these kids.
They don't care.
So yeah,
it's totally fine.
Just dress them in the most horrible neon greens and yellows, and, you know, no one's going to stop you. No one's going to stop you.
Make them quack. Make them quack like the animals that they are. So last week we went over Time Spiral. Pretty good set. I actually ended up having a kind of a bad allergic reaction during the podcast, so I don't know if anybody picked up on that. Also, the audio was kind of crappy because I didn't restart my computer, so my apologies on that, but I've restarted it before this episode, so we should be good, assuming Discord's not finicky. But y'all just bulldoze through it anyway, the great listeners that you are. So no more apologies, only great content coming now in the form of Planar Chaos.
Oh, yeah.
I think. I don't know. I went over this, much like I do every time before we do one of these shows. I went over this, and, you know, the events that involved this set, I kind of dig. So I'm excited to talk about that. Coming into this, much like last week, I don't really know where I stand on this set. Your opinion and your thoughts will certainly influence mine. Do you have any initial opening salvos you'd like to throw before we start diving in?
So the big thing for me with this set is that I think there's a top level mistake in the execution that makes the set really confusing. I think under any circumstances, well executed or not, it would be confusing, but the way it went made it ultra confusing. So there's basically two ways to engage with the we're messing with the color pie sort of experiment, and that's the crux of Planar Chaos. One is, hey, actually, Magic is littered with all these examples of cards that appeared initially in the wrong color, as we understand the color pie now. So Prodigal Sorcerer, that card's an alpha, not really a blue thing. We're going to make a red version of it, because red should get this mechanic. Okay, cool, I get it. There's the other execution, which is, for this set, one time only, we are going to be doing some crazy experiments with the color pie. So green normally doesn't get haste. Now we're giving them ball lightning. Okay, I think that's super confusing, and if you're just a regular Magic player who doesn't read a bunch of articles, the cards are going to be super confusing and it's not going to make any sense, but whatever. Let's assume that you want to do that. I think for the set to make any sense at all, you have to pick one of the two things because they're at odds with each other, right? We're doing the color pie the right way versus we're purposefully doing the color pie the wrong way. And because both executions appear in the set, it's just sort of a jumble of stuff.
Okay. Well, we fired an opening salvo. Well done. We're going to get into that with the facts of the set right now, which you've already touched on a little bit. 41st. Why was that so hard to say? 41st Magic expansion, released on February 2nd, 2007. That's Groundhog Day. That's my brother's birthday. Boom. There you go. There's some facts for you. I don't really know what I was doing in 2007. Much of the same. My life is in shambles. I hate everything and everyone. Not much has changed really in that regard. Anything for you? People are really, I gotta tell you, Twitter and various other social media outlets are really enjoying your Upper Deck stories, by the way.
We can do you want to hear? I'll try to do one an episode. It's hard to do because
I would love for there to be at least like one an episode during this time in your life would be great.
Okay. I'll give you the story where I knew it was over. And
okay, perfect.
The only time I pride myself on not having issues with morale, can do the work kind of no matter what the circumstances are. You've done some shows with me where it was like the hotel room didn't have a bed, I just slept on the couch, or there's no food, and I sort of just roll with it. It's not that big of a deal.
Dude, we just get through that like that's just another show.
That's just another show. No bed.
Yeah.
Just across the street from the munitions depot in Indianapolis, sub-zero weather, no food anywhere, wherever. It's a show. Get through it. So I didn't know this at any point prior to this moment, but apparently Upper Deck rented its office plants. We had just like potted plants around the building, as one does when you have a big office where you regularly have clients come in, or
Sure.
you have 100 employees and you want it to look kind of nice and not like a dungeon. So these plants are all over the building, whatever. One day a truck pulls up and they're here to repossess the plants. We had fallen behind on our plant payments and they were taking them back.
No, dude.
And that's when I was like, okay, I got to really start looking for another job. Because if we fall behind on that bill. And leading up to that also was we got an email that was like, if you work in a room that has 2 or more lights, you can only have half of the lights on. I'm not kidding you. So we would like the room that I was working in for WoW Minis had like 4 light switches. It was a room with, I don't know, like 6 people working in it or whatever. Me and a couple other people. 4 light switches, could only turn on 2. And the person who was running the project checked in because like apparently it was serious enough that if someone walked past a room where more than half the light switches were on, someone would get a reprimand. Anyhow, we were able to stick one of the plants in the closet to save it, from the repossession. Rest of them gone. That's the whole story. I was there for a truck to roll in and take all the plants back.
And you know what? Actually, if you think about it, in combination, it makes a lot of sense. Plants need light. Not going to get enough light to the plants with only half on. Might as well just give the plants back.
Well, my understanding is that plants they don't thrive under light bulbs. Like you need a difference. So I don't know if there's a relationship between the two things, but
but they're fake plants, so I think that fake plants might thrive under light bulbs.
Yeah. So it was a wild time. Wild time. That's the only day that I had low morale. Like I came home from work and I was like, that kind of sucked. Watching that kind of sucked.
That's the one that broke you.
What?
The plants?
Yeah, well, it's like I can't believe we were running plants in the first place. And then how far behind you had to be on your bill that they would pay to have the truck come out and pay for 2 employees to come up the stairs and take them all, Sad day. Sad day.
I wonder what members of the crew do that, where they're like, all right, you two, I want you to go into that building, Upper Deck. Just take them.
Take them
no
back.
questions asked.
Take them
Don't
back.
take no for an answer. Just take them.
Anyone gives you any flack, you shove them to the ground. We're
That's
getting
right.
those plans.
That's right.
These people owe us $85. They've made it clear to us that they're never paying that bill. You got to go get the plans.
We don't take no for an answer. Bring them all back.
Yeah. But I got a lot of Upper Deck stories. We'll try to save them one of the episode. The problem is that when you bring something up like that, there's this ripple effect where I remember just a half dozen other outlandish things that happened kind of around the same time or connected to it. Another nice thing about the Upper Deck stories is many of them involve David Humphreys, who is now over Magic in a like senior design position. So, ties the room together.
Even better.
Yeah.
Even better. More facts of this set. 165 cards. 60 commons, 55 uncommons, and 50 rares. Why am I doing this? I need to move this screen over. I have like a 3-monitor setup, and I have the outline of the set on the furthest screen away from my microphone. So I'm just making this extremely hard on myself. Anyway, I'm sorry. This set was codenamed Crackle of Snap Crackle Pop. Set includes no artifacts and has 45 color shifted cards. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look here at the marketing that I found for this, and a little bit of the time shifted stuff that's going on, which you've mentioned a little bit at the top. The theme of the expansion is the alternate present to fit the theme of the block, which is time. Its expansion symbol is a depiction of 2 overlapping planes. There are no artifacts, as I mentioned. The 45 time shifted cards in Planar Chaos, also known as color shifted or plane shifted, represent cards being reprinted from an alternate reality. They are each functionally identical to an old card, with the crucial exception of their color and possibly with a different creature type or referencing a different color or land type in its abilities. Cards that were time shifted in Planar Chaos have a slightly different border, and their title and types were written in white instead of black. In contrast to Time Spiral, they had regular colored expansion symbols. So we're just kind of messing with time and space and all these things. Okay. We had some events with Planar.
I said the laziest writing trope. We're messing with time. All right, so you're saying you're just not constrained by anything. Anything that happened before another element in the plot, if you just act like it didn't happen, no one really cares. All right, great. Cool. Anywho, keep going.
We got our design. Bill Rose is the lead. Matt Place, Mark Rosewater. Ooh, here's a name I haven't heard in a while. Paul Sotosanti.
Future.
Yeah,
that was his nickname. He was the first person to ever get a job in game design in our sort of the New Jersey, Pittsburgh sort of scene.
Okay.
And because they called it the Future League, we called him Future. And he's still called Future, even though we all work in game design now, and he doesn't work on Magic anymore. I think he's over at Riot.
Okay, got it. Devin Lowe was the lead on... Devin Lowe and Bill Rose were the leads. Zvi Maushevitz worked on this set as well. Development was Brian Schneider, Henry Stern, and Mike Turian. As I mentioned, the release date was February 2nd. Themes and mechanics were time-shifted cards, split cards, Rebel, Slivers, Thallid, Spell Shapers. We'll get into that and the keywords and all that other stuff. So there's your info. Let's talk about tournaments that were involving this. This is where we get to dive in a little bit. There's a Pro Tour in Geneva. It was February 9th through the 11th, 2007. Attendance, 386 players. Winner, Mike Hron.
Mm-hmm.
Drafted a Jund deck with Spectral Force, Stone Bruh, Crozen Hero. Got you twice. Trump the Domains. Got you last week, too, at Stone Bruh. Other players in the top 8 of notable name. Irvin the Jazz Hour Tormos. Kenji Samura. Just a recurring name during this era.
Yeah. Was it 2006 and there was a tournament? Yeah, you're going to see Kenji's name in the top 8 of all of them.
Marvin Libert, or as we used to call him, Marvin the Bear, and Willie Edel. Not a lot to note about the limited GP. Limited GPs back then, it was just all limited all the time. No split tournament, nothing like that. The thing I can tell you is Atron was a Madison player. His last name was pronounced Haran, but everyone pronounced it Atron. Limited player, a master at limited, has won like multiple team GPs, won this Pro Tour. I mean, he was just an all-timer in limited format.
A baller, too.
True. Very
Monster
true.
On the basketball court. I love that so many of the nicknames, particularly of European players, they ostensibly are supposed to be sort of affectionate, but they really boil down to Americans could not be bothered to figure out how to pronounce their last name. Yeah, it's like Marvin the Bear. And it's like, that's because we couldn't be bothered.
No, absolutely
Yeah,
not.
Haroon Remy, he just went by, like, started calling him Heroin.
That's correct.
Just could not be bothered.
Just, we're not going to take the time.
These nicknames would not fly in 2021.
Not even a little. Not even a little. This is where things get a little fun, though. There were some GPs during this time. And I know, as we talk about the GPs, obviously there are lesser events than Pro Tours, but they still matter. But the GP results during some of this era are just like pretty amazing, like the late stages of the 2000s. There was a GP in Dallas, extended, February 24th and 25th. Attendance 746. Winner, Raphael Levy, with a deck called Gaia's Might Get There. Nowadays, if I were naming the deck, it would be called 5 Colors Zoo. Deal with it. This deck was a 5-color zoo deck with a lot of fetch lands, a lot of shock lands, Gaia's Might, Tribal Flames, some other burn spells, stuff like that. In Gaia's Might in combination with Boros Swiftblade, bit of a combo. Also, it was just tap green, deal 5 a lot of the time. Paul Sheehan, there's that name again. Kenji Samura, Mark Herberholtz, John Pelkak, Jim Davis, all top 8 of this tournament as well. Sheehan and Kenji did it with Agrolome. Herberholtz did it with Gaia's Might Get There of his own, but he had main deck copies of Sensei's Divining Top. A little bit weird, but Mark's a genius, so I'm sure there was a reason. Pelkak with Affinity, Jim Davis, of course, with Goblins. Shout out Jim Davis, Mog Monday. And now 2 players who did not make the top 8. Yourself, you finished in 99th place.
May Day 2 didn't cash. What a Grand Prix. There's a lot of those coming down the pipeline.
And myself, 303rd place, did not make Day 2, did not cash, but in classic fashion, 9th place on Breakers in the PTQ.
Perfect.
Beautiful end of the weekend. I don't remember what I played in the GP. Do you remember what you played in the GP?
Gotta be something really bad. Yeah, I'm probably mono red. I'm guessing I played mono red.
Okay. The Agrolome deck at that time was Devastating Dreams Terravore. Had Loam in it. Guys Might Get There, as I mentioned, was a zoo deck. It was extremely good. Affinity was fine. Goblins was fine. I have a story from this PTQ. Are you ready?
Ready.
Neil Reeves, who you've mentioned on this podcast before, who just the people, the young crowd, they just don't know.
First person before there was Todd Anderson. Before there was, really just Todd Anderson. Neil. Trying to think if there's anyone else. Really just Todd. Neil was the first person to indulge in the I have a southern accent, and so I'm going to act like a redneck, even though I'm the smartest person in the room. Ran circles around people at Grand Prix doing that thing. Best all time to run that grift. Neil Reeves and Antonino De Rosa. It's just like jolly guy with an Italian accent from, and he's from Florida. So who knows what's going on? Another genius. Just leveling people. I don't know if there's anyone in the scene today who could get away with something like that. I'll think about it some, but Neil was, he smelled blood in the water with his routine.
Just a master. From Little Rock. Like he's from Arkansas. I don't know if he's from Little Rock, but he's from Arkansas.
Yeah, my understanding is that he was quite the athlete in high school, that he had a scholarship to Rice to play baseball. Rice is college down in Houston, I think. Got hurt, started playing Magic and poker, and just, did that very successfully.
So in this PTQ that I got 9th in, I played, and this will be a recurring theme, a deck that Jerry told me to play because he's much better at building decks than I am. Played Counterbalance, which, if you know me, not really my wheelhouse. Mm-hmm. So I started the tournament 1-1-1, and then won out the rest of the rounds and got 9th on Breakers. Good beats. I deserve it. The draw was, probably my fault. So one of the matches, I'm watching Neil play in the PTQ. It's either the PTQ or the GP. I don't remember. But I'm watching him play. He's also playing Counterbalance, okay? Mm-hmm. And his opponent is playing some sort of green-black, just a lot of 4-drops, okay? Just a lot.
I know the story. I know this one.
Do you know the story?
I do.
Yeah, okay. So a lot of 4-drops. So opponent casts, I don't know, Phantom Centaur. Neil reveals a 4-mana spell.
I know the spell.
To counterbalance. Do you know the spell? What was the spell?
Damnation.
Damnation, okay. Reveals Damnation. All right. Counters the thing. Opponent's like, that sucks. Neil spins his top, puts Damnation, second or third card down so he doesn't draw it, draws a card that's not Damnation, play a land, pass the turn. Opponent plays another Phantom Centaur. Reveal to counterbalance. Damnation. Opponent goes, man, another one. Neil just doesn't even say anything, just spins his top, does the same thing, draws his card, whatever. Opponent, next one. Let's just say it's Hunted Wumpus. Counter that too. Same Damnation. Opponent is like, wow, unbelievable. The opponent gets their 4-drop countered for the next 3 or 4 turns and finally realizes, same Damnation. Yes.
Well, to the opponent's credit/defense here, it wasn't like there was some other line of play available to them that would have gotten them out of this bind. You know what I mean?
I'm trying to think of all the 4-drops they get. Impurasaur, which is not even a card.
Blastoderm.
But yeah, just every 4-drop in the Immemorial of the Open Wallet. That's countered too.
Right.
All right.
Juzam.
Fair enough. Yeah. Jade Leech. Also
Jade
to the
Leech.
graveyard.
Yes.
Yeah. Argrothian Worm. Countered as well. So I remember that happening and just Neil having to keep it together and seamlessly, like it's nothing, just keeping it together. So kudos to him. So that's GP Dallas. Then there was a GP in Singapore. Extended as well. March 3rd and the 4th. Attendance 328. Less than the 746 in Dallas. Raphael Levy won that one too. With Gaia's Might Get There. Same deck. Maybe some minor changes, but exact same archetype. Antoine Ruel made top 8 with Gaia's Might Get There. Oliver Ruel's brother made top 8 with Balancing Tings, which is a deck based around Balancing Act and the Invasion Sacklands.
Yes.
Okay. And then Tamoharu Saito made top 8 with Azorius Tron. So I bring up these 2 events. One, because if you've never seen the Gaia's Might Get There, aka 5-color zoo deck, it was a masterpiece. And second, I know a lot of people who watch like Pro Tour coverage, if we call it Pro Tours or Mythic Championship coverage, whatever the hell we call it now.
Mm-hmm.
You see Raphael Levy in these events a lot. And, he does like well enough. Doesn't top 8 them all. Like, he's not like on the run that like Nassif or LSV or Seth Manfield are on or anything. And Raph's kind of like the old timer in the crowd now. I don't think people actually know, much like with Kenji, how good Raph was or is.
No, I mean, he's sort of, in some ways, he gets sort of bundled in with a lot of those players who's like, oh yeah, they were playing during the 90s and they've just been here forever and they sort of like Peter Long or whatever. It's like Raph is better than that kind of player. And he had a run here in the mid 2000s that was really, really strong. I mean, people have to keep in mind the Hall of Fame wasn't always a thing. Like, players just had to stay on forever. And Raph qualifying for a million events in a row was not like, he didn't get to just spike some events and then qualify for the rest of his life. He had to be doing this constantly. So the longevity of his career is really, really impressive, even if he didn't have a bunch of top finishes, and then he has those as well.
He was really good. That deck was really good. I remember playing that deck a couple of times in PTQs. I don't know if you ever played it or not.
No.
My favorite thing about that deck is you would look at your opening hand and you'd see like 3 fetches, 4 spells. And I played this deck in a PTQ in Chicago. I lost playing for top 8 twice. I remember that. I remember, because I had like basically no practice with it, but I remember I was just like, I'm just going to tank on my opening hand for like 5 minutes. Because if I can get all the colors of mana, then my hand's a keep. And so I would look at my opening hand, it's like 3 fetches, 4 spells, one of them's a 1-drop, one of them's a Tribal Flames, whatever, and I'm just like, all right, so this fetch is going to get that, this fetch is going to get that, this fetch probably gets that. Okay, and my opponent's just like, you're going to keep? I'm like, hold on. And I'm like, okay, yeah, keep. And then you just play the first 3 turns like you don't have to think about it. And if you could get all 5 colors mana by turn 3, the deck was just outrageous.
I played a pretty similar deck.
Just outrageous.
I played a pretty similar deck at Grand Prix Portland right before the Dragon's Maze Pro Tour that was not as aggressive. It wasn't like a double striker deck, but did have Gaia's Might and Tribal Flames and like Deathrite Shaman, Snapcaster Mage, just like good cards and, some beatdown stuff, but could go a little bit bigger. And I had the exact same experience where like all the difficulty of the game was looking at your 2 fetch lands in your duel and thinking about how am I going to sequence these first couple of turns? What's the color this hand could afford to not have for a little while, etc., etc. Once you actually figured out you had your mana, the deck was very, very simple to play. But the opening hands were not easy to solve.
So those are the tournaments of that time. A little PT, a couple GPs. And now, you and I are going to take a short break, but when we come back, we're going to dive into the mechanics of Planar Chaos. See you soon. Taking a quick break from the pod to let you know that if you've been enjoying Strixhaven School of Mages preview season as much as I have, and it's a set that Patrick got to work on a little bit too, which is going to make it a great episode for the Resleevables in the future, head over to, of course, StarCityGames.com, but add a little /previews on that if you don't mind. So that's StarCityGames.com/previews, and that'll take you directly to the page where you can find and pre-order all of these brand new Magic cards, all of the cards from Strixhaven, all of the cards of the Mystical Archive, and all of their various editions, of which there are many. 63 Mystical Archive cards. They're actually pretty cool. Artwork's a little bit different on them. I like Wizards taking a little bit of a risk there. And of course, with this brand new set, there's ideally a lot to look forward to. Again, that's StarCityGames.com/previews. Get your pre-orders in for Strixhaven School of Mages. Magic goes to college. And now, back to the pod. All right, everybody, we're back. It's time to go over the mechanics of this this set that I don't think Patrick likes very much, but I don't want to speak for you, so we'll find out how you feel about the mechanics. Let's start with Vanishing.
Okay.
AKA fading, kind of. All right, so Vanishing N. N could be a number. This permanent enters the battlefield with N time counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove a time counter from it. When the last time counter is removed, sacrifice that permanent. This is Planar Chaos' twist on Nemesis's fading mechanic, but more intuitive to play due to the lack of delay after the last counter is removed. It's also more compatible with other time spiral block mechanics, in particular Suspend, as the two abilities are inversions of each other, and of course we're playing into the time theme. Has its own visual cue, the form of the creature sizzling away into ether. 14 cards total. 10 cards in Planar Chaos, a couple in Future Sight, a couple in Modern Horizons. The rare was Chronozoa. The uncommons were Calcidurum, Deadwood Treefolk, Lava Core Elemental, Tidewalker, and Waning Worm. The commons were Aven Riftwatcher, Deadly Grub, Reality Acid, which sees a little play in Commander, and for you, and I know you've cast this one a lot, Keldon Marauders. Talk to me about Vanishing.
So if you want to bundle Vanishing and Fading together, the designs that I liked, if you go back to Nemesis, I don't think it's a very good mechanic overall because just your permanent slowly dies is not that much fun for reasons that are kind of obvious. But the designs in Nemesis that I do like are the Parallaxes and Sapperling Bursts, where you have some level of agency, like, do I want to have a little bit of advantage over a long timeline, or do I want to have this burst and then it goes away? So the Parallax cards, like, I could get rid of all of your creatures for 1 or 2 turns, or I could get rid of like your best creature for 5 turns, or I could have a protection for my own creatures for 5 turns. That's actually kind of cool as far as these things go. There's a lot of like customization and interesting decision points, but you are sort of forced to act because the card's naturally attritioning on its own. That's kind of sweet, for what it is. The designs here are just kind of like the thing just exists for a period of time and then dies. And I just don't think that's very fun, even if some of the cards were competitive or fringe competitive.
Calcidurum was a nice one. I liked Aven Riftwatcher. I'm looking at these from a competitive standpoint. And I remember when Marauders came out and like initially people didn't really like it. And then once people started playing with it, they were like, oh, this is actually a really good card for Mono Red. And it was a really good card for Mono Red. It's like outclassed now, but for then, that was a good card.
It's a ton. I think actually, if you played a modern Mono Red matchup right now, Keldon Marauders would still be good. It's just like you just can't take 5 from one card. So you have to do something about it, whether it's kill it or chump block it or something. And you still get 2 damage in the event that your opponent changes a card. This card's still like you're right that it's outclassed and there's so many different matchups that you can't just like optimize for the mirror. But Keldon Marauders would still be very good in modern burn mirror matches.
Let's go to Madness. which of course is mechanic, much like I don't know if all of them, but most of them in this set have previously been done. If you discard this card, discard it into exile. When you do, cast it for its madness cost or put it into your graveyard. It was introduced in Odyssey Block and Torment and has been featured in Time Spiral Block and Shadows over Innistrad. Each reprint of the mechanic has brought minor updates to the rules for the keyword because it can be a little bit confusing, especially to newer players. 52 cards total have madness, 4 of them in Planar Chaos. There was no rare card with madness, however, there were some uncommons in Big Game Hunter, Muckdrub, Reckless Worm, which is a color-shifted arrogant worm, and there was a common in Brain Gorgers. Now, madness has a long history, and I'm sure when we get to Odyssey, we'll talk about it more there because it had a much larger impact with arrogant worm, Basking Rootwalla, Circular Logic, so on and so forth. But give me your thoughts on madness in the scope of Planar Chaos.
Do you know about the what color is your mongrel Canadian Nationals tournament?
Excuse me, repeat your question?
Do you know about the what color is your mongrel Canadian Nationals tournament?
I don't, but okay, interesting. Just tell me your story, even though I think for some reason it involves Slay.
So I went up to Canadian Nationals to play in a team PTQ when I was already qualified, just for the times, with a team that I wouldn't have played with if I qualified. So we like drove up from New Jersey to Toronto to just like hang out at Canadian Nationals, play this PTQ. Anywho, this whole story, what triggered the memory is you talking about the rules changes. So Wild Mongrel, historically significant madness outlet, among other things. When you discard a card, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and you may change its color, or becomes any color, whatever. So the way the initial rules for madness worked is that like madness was a trigger, and the act of like resolving your madness had to occur before the pumps and color changes happened to the mongrel. So imagine like sort of like prowess. Like I cast a bolt, and my Swift Spear becomes a 2/3 before the bolt resolves. But it's the other way around. So if you had a Wild Mongrel and you discarded a Basking Rootwalla, and I'm like, what color is your mongrel? And you go, I don't know, red. It's like, okay, you can't madness your Rootwalla. You passed it.
Yep.
So I'm just watching this tournament. I'm watching this tournament where people are just constantly going like, what color is your mongrel? What color is your mongrel? Hoping the person just like gets confused and says something other than green so they can't madness out their thing. To be the correct answer is green, but if you wanted to be really safe, you had to say still green to imply that the mongrel pump had not yet resolved. Anyhow, circling back to madness as a mechanic, I'm not that big of a fan of it because it is too prescriptive in terms of the cards that it works with. Like a big test for me for mechanics, not everyone's gonna pass it, but like a thing that I care about is, let's say you own a deck and it's just the cards you have or the cards that you like, and you go to a store, you buy a pack of the newest set, maybe you haven't played for a few months, and you open up the pack. Do you have cards that you can add to the deck? Or are all the mechanics sort of like self-referential or assume that you have a lot of the same cards or whatever? And Madness fails that test pretty badly. Like, it does not happen organically in games. You have to play with really specific cards to make it happen. That said, there's like a tone and a vibe to it. It's kind of fun to be able to turn the discard into like a card advantage engine. Like, it does change the way you analyze a lot of different cards in the face of that mechanic. But in terms of it being like a thing that you can just sort of sample, or you can add one Madness card to your deck and have a good time, it fails that test, I think, pretty significantly. And so I know it's like in the rotation. It's a keyword that comes back every now and again, and I think it's fine, but it just requires a lot of architecture, and it's not the most like I'm playing with random cards friendly mechanic.
So ignoring everything you just said about Madness, which I completely understand and respect, I would be the guy who would be asking what color your mongrel is.
Part of the reason I brought it up.
Every time.
That's shocking to me that you weren't there for this, because you played quite a bit with Wild Mongrel.
I did, but that's like, that's when I was like, I don't know, 14 or 15 or something. And like, I wasn't like, a stone cold psycho with Magic at that point. So, I'm sure there are some stories that I'm going to get to. I mean, there's obviously the Esper Charm story, which I cannot wait till we get to going over Esper Charm because I am going to just destroy everyone when we get to that story. But yeah, I would have been that person for sure. What color's your mongrel? Sorry about that whammy. I don't know. I'm a big believer in if you're going to show up to a tournament, you should know the rules.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just kind of a hill that I would die on. Like the first Magic tournament I ever played, I made sure that I read the Ice Age rulebook twice before I went because I didn't want to be someone who came unprepared to the tournament for people who actually do this sort of thing regularly.
Yeah.
That's just my stance on things, though.
Yeah, I so on one hand, I'm sympathetic insofar as like it's opt-in competition. Like if you don't want to play that way, you can just not play in tournaments. So by entering a tournament and paying money, you're sort of consenting to play to a different standard or whatever. I still find the like active fishing or couching your language in such a way to make the game stay ambiguous, that just doesn't pass my ethical sniff test. I don't think Esper Charm is in that space, to be honest with you, but
it's not even close. It's not even close. Actually, you know what? Screw it. No, I'm telling the story right now.
Okay.
I got to get it off my chest. I can feel the people right now rolling their eyes at the Esper Charm story. So here it is. I'm playing the Midwest. I can't believe I remember this. Midwest Masters Series. Some random like thing that has a bunch of qualifiers, and you play in a big tournament in Gen Con, right? Mm-hmm. In Columbus, Ohio. Let's just get all the details out there. I am baroque. And playing as much Magic now as I ever have before in my entire life. I'm hyper competitive. I'm a stone cold crazy psycho person. Okay. So yeah, the win here would be a lot, but I will never, and I will never cheat in a Magic tournament, but I will definitely hold you accountable to the rules at a Magic tournament when you're playing against me. It's important. Okay. So my opponent, end of turn, casts Esper Charm. And he said, I'll cast Esper Charm, target myself. And I say, you're going to target yourself? He says, yeah, I'm going to target myself. I say, you're going to target yourself? He said, yeah, I'm going to target myself. I said, you're going to target yourself? And the opponent said, yes, I'm going to target myself. And I call it Judge. And I say, Judge, my opponent is playing an Esper Charm, targeting themselves. And my opponent goes, yes. And like, incredulous. I am casting Esper Charm, targeting myself. And Judge goes, okay. And I go, all right, discard 2 cards. And my opponent picks up Esper Charm, reads it, kind of shrugs, and discards 2 cards.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? At that time, there was a Reanimator deck that had like Body Double and Makeshift Mannequin. Okay? My opponent didn't even think anything of it. Discards 2 cards, is a little upset with himself, ends up going on to lose the game, and I end up going on to win the tournament. Great stuff. Okay?
Great stuff.
So everyone thinks that I have rules lawyered my opponent to death, even though I have given my opponent in between 5 to 7 opportunities to go like, why does he keep asking me this question? That is weird. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Thinks nothing of it. I write an article about the internet. Everyone calls me a scumbag and all these nasty names on the Star City forums. And I wrote this article like in 2010 or 2011. Okay? It still comes up from time to time when I'm in like various Twitch channels about like, oh yeah, Esper Charm guy, whatever, right? Which it's like nothing for me. Like it's not my fault you don't know how your cards work. Like you're playing in a tournament, you can read your cards, you know. Oftentimes people say cards in English, so you can just read your card. Okay? There's only one targeting mode on Esper Charm. It's discard 2 cards. If you want to draw 2 cards, it just says draw 2 cards. You choose that mode. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the fun part of this story. 2016, when I was living in Roanoke, I would go to tournaments with all the people around there. Majors, Tom Ross, Jerry, whatever. It's like random SCGs that were in driving distance. Okay? In Louisville, I went to a tournament and, played. I'm not doing commentaries. I just went to a tournament, played, did bad. Okay? So, like, I'm, like, kind of frustrated. Had, like, a good conversation with Sam Black about some stuff. Walking outside, blowing out some steam. Some guy goes, hey, are you the Esper Charm guy? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, you did that against me. And I'm like, oh, boy. Here we go. Just 8 years later, it's on. Mm-hmm. And the guy goes, thank you. That really helped me learn to pay attention to my cards more and how important it is to communicate and actually know what my cards do. And then I lost it because I was like, I'm being punked. This can't actually be happening. And I took a picture with the guy and I was like, Jerry was outside smoking a cigarette. I'm like, you see this? Do you see this right here? The story that everyone calls me a jerk about? This guy, the person it's happened to, isn't even mad.
So the reason that the Esper Charm does not bother me is my line for this is, who is the person that's introducing the ambiguity? I think that if you sort of announce your cards in a way that's confusing or that's opaque in a hope to get the other person confused or whatever, that's pretty bad. Here, the player casting the Esper Charm is the person introducing the ambiguity, which you attempted to clarify several times. So it's not problematic for me.
Look, I'm good with it.
I know you're good
Obviously.
with it. I'm not saying that my opinion here is necessarily wanted or whatever, but that's the line for me is, who's the person who's initiating the conversation? Who's the person who's introducing the confusion? And in this case, it was your opponent who was acting in good faith, but didn't quite know how his cards worked. And you asked several times to clarify what they were doing. They clarified over and over again, and then the spell resolved as it was announced. That to me is not that big of a deal.
And as far as rules lawyering goes, I've done way worse. It's not even close. So this doesn't even pass the sniff test for me. Now I'm not going to tell any more rules lawyering stories, or I don't even consider this to be rules lawyering, but I have done some rules lawyering in the past that I don't know if I'm fond of or not. But we'll get to those stories as we get to those sets that are relevant.
Do you mind me giving you an example of a story that I know I won't name the parties, but falls on the other side of this?
Of course.
Player A casts Detention Sphere. Announces Detention Sphere.
I know this. Yeah, go ahead.
Opponent has a permanent in play that could be targeted by a resolved Detention Sphere. Opponent somehow bounces or exiles their own permanent in response to the Detention Sphere being cast. And says, okay, now Detention Sphere resolves. Player puts Detention Sphere on the battlefield. Player B goes, you have to pick a target. And that is technically true. You do have to pick a target, but it's a may if you're going to exile it. Basically trying to induce the opponent into thinking that they're forced to exile their own permanent now that there's no eligible targets on the opposing side of the battlefield. That to me falls on the wrong side of it. Because the player saying you have to pick something, you have to target, is the one introducing the ambiguity, is introducing the confusion, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes some sense.
And in the Esper Charm story, the other person's the one introducing it. So there you go.
Hey, let's get into a mechanic that's really confusing and doesn't make a lot of sense and is confusing to people sometimes. Morph.
Mm-hmm.
You may play this face down, the card in question, as a 2/2 creature for 3 colorless mana. Turn it face up anytime for its morph cost. 160 cards total in Magic's history have morph, 5 of them in Planar Chaos. There's a rare, a Chroma, Angel of Fury, a couple uncommons in Riptide Pilferer, Time Bender, a couple commons in Aquamorph Entity, and very good and limited, Shaper Parasite. I'm sure when we get to Onslaught Block, we'll talk a ton about Morph, but some general thoughts here.
It's weird, so Morph is kind of fun when there's a lot of it, insofar as, you kind of know the range, you're playing around things or whatever, but it's also not that much fun because at a certain point there's too much, you can't play around everything. Morph in small doses is kind of the opposite, where it's it's fun insofar as the range is really limited, but it's not fun insofar as once the range is really limited, why are we bothering going through the mystery of what's down there if it's only 5 potential cards? I don't know.
Ooh, what could it be?
Right. It's I know what it could be. There's not that, there's not that many options or whatever. But anyhow, I like it just fine. It's okay. I think it's a mechanic that's disproportionately good for invested players because it does involve a lot of tracking, but at a certain point, my opponent has cards in their hand and some mana up and things can happen is sort of the nature of the game engine. And Morph is kind of explicitly that, but on the table. It's okay.
Let's talk about Kika. You may pay an additional cost as you play this spell. 159 cards total with Kika. 4 in Planar Chaos. There was an uncommons in Anna Battle Mage, Hunting Wilds, and Pouncing Worm. Common in Satana Wood Readers. Cook, Kicker, a Fish. Initially in Odyssey, am I right?
Invasion.
You're right. Invasion. You're right. Because Probe was Invasion. Probe with Kicker.
That's common.
Very powerful card. Just kind of general thoughts on Kicker as a mechanic.
It's awesome. It's too wide. Like, there's a million different ways that you can do Kicker that you're not really supposed to do Kicker. You're supposed to do, like, this version of Kicker, that version of Kicker, that version of Kicker. It's a great... it's one of the most important mechanics of all time because it's the foundation for a million other mechanics and a million other potential mechanics. So, yeah, it's one of the best.
Yeah, Kicker's a banger. I like Kicker. I don't know if I like this one. I'm actually really curious about your thoughts on Echo.
Oh, you are?
I know.
Oh, you are? Okay. Did you remember cumulative upkeep?
You mean paying your credit card bill every month?
Yeah, check it out. Here it is. Slightly higher again.
Why does it keep going up? Echo is at the beginning of your upkeep. If this card came under your control since the beginning of your last upkeep, sacrifice it unless you pay its Echo cost. This mechanic first appeared in Ursa's block, which I'm sure we'll talk about it more then. Back in Time Spiral block and Modern Horizons as well. First time Echo cost was different than just the casting cost again. So they kind of mix things up a little bit. 51 cards in Magic's history have Echo, 5 of them in Planar Chaos. There were a couple of rares in Timbermare and Volcano Hellion, an uncommon in Hammerheim, Deadeye, and commons in Stink Scourger, a little goblin I enjoy, and Uktabi Drake. Don't spend too much time bashing Echo.
Well, this is actually slightly different Echo, right? Because Echo in Saga block is the same cost the second time, and these are all over the place, right? Like Stink Scourgers, 2 mana and 4. The 2/1 flyer with haste is green to cast and green 1 to echo. So they are trying to like make it a little bit different. So I've never told Aaron this, but he wrote one of the most influential articles or like snippets from an article that I ever read in terms of influencing me as a game designer. And it was talking about how they polled like people who played Magic. I don't know how they like sent out the emails or whatever, but they asked Magic players to rank their favorite keywords. And he said an Echo came in last. And he said in the article, I'm paraphrasing a little bit. He goes, and I thought, yeah, why would anyone like this? It's like, yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, it's such a simple thing to say out loud, but you get to, when you're working with a bunch of game designers and it's going to like disproportionately select for professional Magic players or people who like know the canon of everything and have been playing for forever, you can appreciate the like, oh, it's interesting that you get to like pay the cost a second time and there's all these decisions that emerge from blah, 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 right? But when you really get down to it, like, why would you enjoy this? Unless the card's powerful and you like winning. Like, what's fun about paying for your card a second time? And I remember Aaron's sort of just like matter of fact reflection on that. And me thinking like, yeah, of course. You should make things that people like. It's such a simple thing to think about as a designer. But like, there's so many games and like, not Magic, but specifically, but like so many games out there in all genres that just fail that test of like, why would anyone like this? So yeah, that's my opinion on Echo. Why would anyone like this? And when we get to Saga, I'm one of the people who actually was like turned on by Echo. Like, I remember looking at some of the creatures that had Echo and I was like, this is so sick. Like, these creatures are so much better than the ones that I was playing with 2 years ago because I like lapsed for a little while. But that's just speaking to the power level, you know, the presentation of it. It's not actually fun to do this a second time. I do appreciate in Planar Chaos trying to like not just make it pay the same cost again, but make it a little dynamic. And there's some ways that it weaves in with Vanishing, right? Like there's spots where you cast your Sting Scourger knowing that you can't echo it because you're willing to pay for the unsummon and the blocker for the next turn. That's something. That's, you know, and you don't get that sort of design space until you make the casting cost and the echo something different. So that's something.
Okay. I can agree with you. Why would it be fun paying for your
Who would like
albino
this?
troll twice? Yeah.
Why would anyone like this? Yeah, Aaron, you're right. You're totally right. Why would anyone like this? I never thought of it in those terms before, but of course you're right. Of course you're right.
Also, this set brought back Suspend, Split Second, and Flash from Time Spiral. So we get a little bit of everything here. I'm not going to grade the mechanics this time because we really kind of just talked about them a little bit. And we're going to probably grade them a little bit more in their actual sets. But they tried some new things with Madness and Kicker and Echo, and kudos to them for that. So I'm just going to put a wrap on this section. We're going to head to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to play the Cycles game where Patrick is going to try to guess the actual card that has been time shifted, the original version. So we'll see you here for that in just a sec. Taking a quick break from the podcast to let you know that the road to the Strixhaven Championship begins with the SCD Tour Online. We are back. We are better than ever. The road to the Call Time Championship was fun, but you know what? That's over and done. Either you're qualified or you're not. And if you're not, it's kind of a whammy. If you are, congratulations to you. But the good news is you have the opportunity to qualify for another championship that'll be taking place on Magic Arena. As I mentioned, the road to the Strixhaven Championship begins with the SCD Tour Online, where we got cash prizes, we got tens of thousands of MTG Arena gems, MTG Arena qualifier weekend invitations, and best of all, the thing that you care about, Strixhaven Championship invitations. Head over to scdtouronline.starcitygames.com. Find a satellite that works for you. Learn information about the 5K Strixhaven Championship qualifiers and figure out how you can qualify for that Strixhaven Championship like so many are going to be attempting to do over the next handful of weeks. We just updated everything earlier this week, so all the details are there for you to qualify for the Strixhaven Championship. One more time with that slogan so it really gets in that brain. The road to the Strixhaven Championship begins with the SCD Tour Online. Now, with that, back to the pod. All right, everybody. It's Magic podcasting's favorite game. It's not really. The cycles of a Planar Chaos. I think it's the gin and tonic that's getting to work on me right now. It's been a long day, but
That's where you're at?
it's been a long day. You know, this is an explicit podcast, and also I'm 35. You turn 40 this year, don't you?
In October, yeah.
Good God.
Yeah.
Gin, I found out this year. Yeah, it was this year. I found out that like a lot of people think gin is disgusting.
Gin straight is a tough drink. And I'm not a big fan of most mixed gin drinks, but I had a little run with gin and tonics in the Star City forum days. Remember some of the heaters? Many of those, many of my most incendiary posts in the old Star City forums days were fueled by gin and tonics. So I had a phase with them. Now I occasionally like a little gin straight, but I don't like most mixed drinks.
I remember my first gin and tonic. It was with you.
That makes sense.
We went to Morton's.
Yeah, I probably thought it was like a really mature drink to order for you at the time.
No, we went to Morton's. I think it was a Philly show. We went to Morton's after the show because you vehemently declined going to the Olive Garden.
No, I didn't vehemently deny going to the Olive Garden. I vehemently denied going to the Olive Garden again. Not fair to characterize it as me vetoing the first time. It was the second time I vetoed it. Anyhow, please continue.
If once is nice, twice is fine. And I don't know, we went to Morton's after I think day 1 or day 2, I can't remember. And I was just feeling it, and I was like, I'm going to get a gin and tonic. And the lady asked me what kind of gin. I said, I have no idea, but I trust you. And she was trustworthy because it was a good beverage, and now I have them regularly to unwind, especially during this podcast. So there you go. I can't drink beer anymore because it just hits so hard the next day that I can't go to the gym.
So I made the mistake. I don't know if it's a mistake or not, but went to Costco recently and got a 24-pack of Stone beers. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Stone. I'm not. Love Stone. It's a San Diego brewery. They had a little tap room, like a little outdoor tap room, literally like 100 feet from my apartment when I lived in Oceanside. They had a 24-pack of it at Costco, and the next day I wake up feeling like hell having one. They are so brutal. Like, it's not the alcohol content is particularly high. They're in like the 6 to 8% range, but they are just really like, I don't know, brutal. They're brutal.
Dude, it's the carbonation and like the wheat or whatever's in there. I don't know, the hops or something.
Well, all of their beers are like jet black. There's not like any wheat beers to be found in the Stone rotation. But yeah,
I know.
Enjoying in quotes one right now, and tomorrow I'm just gonna wake up feeling just like my insides are going to be torn apart.
I'm at the point in my life, I know the last time I had a beer. It was we did a show in Richmond in I think it was in 2020 yet, because this was pre-pandemic. We did a show in Richmond, and then me, you, Gottlieb, and Jerry went to the Capitol Ale House afterward and watched the Super Bowl and had a couple beers.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was on a Sunday. Flew home on a Monday. And then Tuesday I went to go to my trainer, and I was like, I ain't got it today. And he's like, what did you do? I was like, I had 3 beers 2 days ago. And that is when I knew I can never drink beer again.
I drink a lot less than I used to, but I can't say no to Stone. Too much nostalgia there, and it's tasty. But this is just doing a number on me. I feel like I'm in a boxing match right now. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get through this one. And I know tomorrow I'm going to wake up. You know, I wake up early, kids screaming, and I'm just going to be like, you two had to watch the baby, and I need to go to the bathroom for like 12 minutes. These things are so harsh. But you know, what else are you going to do? It's a pandemic. What else are you going to do? Just at home, you know?
Mixed Drake, man. They don't hit as hard. At least they don't for me. Let's talk about some cycles. Alternate legendary creatures based off of previous versions. Do you have the document open?
I don't.
Okay, perfect. Here we go. Krovax, Ascendant Hero.
Krovax the Chosen?
It is based off of Ascendant Envinkar.
Ascendant Envinkar. Ugh.
Okay, this one's a little easier for you. Braids, Conjurer Adept.
I sure hope that's Braid's Cabal minion.
It is.
Okay.
It is. And that, just a little foreshadowing for our fantastic listeners. I have some great Braid stories during that era, which is the full penalty box if you forgot to sacrifice. And I'm really looking forward to telling.
Is that the first tournament that's confirmed that you and I were both at?
GP Cleveland 2002.
Because I played in that one, and you did as well. We were there for the Braid story. I'm trying to think if that's the first one where I'm like, we were definitely at the same event.
Yeah, I was there. It was 10 minutes from my house. It was great. Miri the Cursed.
Is that Miri Cat Warrior?
That is correct. Achroma, Angel of Fury.
Achroma, Angel of Wrath.
That is correct. You will never get this one.
Okay.
Oh, that's not true. Actually, okay, I would love for you to get this. Jedit, Ojanen, Ojanen, I don't know how to pronounce that word, of Ephraia.
Jet Ojani of Ephraia.
Oh yeah, Ojani. That Ojanen? That's embarrassing. I don't know.
Is it Jet Ojani?
That's correct.
Okay, yeah, it's the one from Legends.
Okay, so the question one has to ask themselves as you look at, and this really threw me for a loop, is like Krovax from Ascendant Envinkar. Like they just basically color shifted, some things changed. Braids, the blue version, you are prompted to put things on the battlefield. Braids come in, you sacrifice. Miri the Curse, instead of being like green, it's black now, whatever. Achroma's red, like mirrors abilities. Normal one's white. Jedit, and then the legendary version of Jedit, which is just like a 5-mana 5/4, and then this new version is just like a bunch of green mana and a bunch of words. Is just like, so you guys just ran out of ideas on that one?
Yeah. Jet Ojani is just such an influential design. I mean, how do you not make an homage to it if you're doing a time shifted set, of course.
I like when you dive into a set and you can realize like, oh, they just didn't have a green card for this one. Okay, that's fine. So here I'm gonna do a quick rundown. So Jedit Ojani is 4 blue, white. So that's 7 mana, 5/5 from Legends. And then this new version in Planar Chaos is 3 green, 5/5 Forest Walk. When it attacks or blocks, put a 2/2 green Cat Warrior with Force walking to the battlefield. Like, they have nothing to do with each other.
No, nothing at all. The legends are really bad in Legends. I don't know if you know that or if you want to just like spoil that episode if we ever get there, but they were all awful at the time, like way worse than Sarah Angels and Senker Vampires, which everyone just had. And Caracas was in the set. So even if they were at least as good, even if they were as good as the other creatures you could play, which they weren't, everyone had just unsummoned tacked onto their planes. Tough time. They got a lot of things right in that set, but the power level of Legends is shot a little low.
We had a charm cycle where each charm had an ability the color normally doesn't have. So Dawn Charm. I'm gonna do this with one charm for you and see if you can guess the abilities. I don't think you're gonna be able to, but do you know the 3 abilities on Dawn Charm?
Not at all.
All right. Prevent all combat damage that will be dealt this turn.
Okay.
Or regenerate target creature, or counter target spell that targets you.
Okay. I mean, that's actually that's not a terrible execution of doing a charm in the set, because it does say counter a spell. Like, it is doing the like, oh, the color is all different. But countering a spell that's targeting you is not that different from giving yourself protection from a color. And so it feels white, even though it has a very blue text box on it. That's actually kind of cool.
All right, you know this one. Piracy Charm.
Oh, that is an homage to Funeral Charm, which I played 4 copies of it the first Pro Tour I played it, which was extended.
Bang.
1 blue instant, give target creature +2/-1 until end of turn, or target player discards a card, or target creature gains Island Walk until the end of the turn.
There he is. Midnight Charm. No way you know this one.
I don't.
All right, here it comes. I'm loading it up here. 1 black instant. Deals 1 damage to target creature and you gain a life. Or target creature gains first strike until end of turn. Or tap target creature. That's the one that's not a black ability.
So it has deal 1 to a creature or tap a creature?
Yeah.
So if they're light, you're good, and if they're heavy, you're good?
Yeah.
Either way you get them, it's just like, you know.
You think that card may have seen more play. Fury Charm. That's the red one. Let's get this one up here. Okay. 1 in a red instant. Destroy target artifact, or target creature gets +1/+1 and gains trample until end of turn, or remove 2 time counters from target permanent or suspended card.
Okay. I like 2 of those modes.
Kind of lame. And then the green one, which I think it saw like some minor constructed play or block constructed play. I can't remember. Evolution Charm.
No clue.
1 in a green instant. Search your library for a basic. Reveal it. Put in your hand. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand, or target creature gains flying until end of turn.
So that one's a little weird because it's got 2 not green modes on it.
Give something flying and then raise dead?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like kind of regrowth-ish. Not really.
It's not the biggest. I think that's like a little bit too much Black's jam. Like, I think return a permanent or return any card feels very green, but creature is sort of a too narrow of a call out. Anyhow, whatever. No one's played with any of these cards except for Piracy Charm. I think showed up a little bit.
All right, there's the Charm Cycle. We're moving on now to the Magus creatures featuring abilities from famous lands. You did great last week. I think you went 5 for 5 last week on this.
Well, this is the set that literally has like Magus of the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale. They are pretty easy to get by name.
Well, we'll see how you do. Don't get ahead of yourself. We'll kick things off with Magus of the Tabernacle.
That is an homage to the Tabernacle at Pendrell Vale.
Magus of the Bazaar.
Bazaar of Baghdad.
Magus of the Coffers.
Cabal Coffers.
Magus of the Arena.
Arena.
Magus of the Library.
Library of Alexandria.
You are 10 for 10.
They made these ones pretty. These ones are pretty easy.
You spoke to how you liked Maguses previously, so we won't rehash that conversation. We'll just move on to the next cycle, which is a bunch of cards nobody knows.
Well, just really quick. I mean, that's another interesting cycle of like they just ran out, right? It's like 4 of the most iconic lands in Magic's history: Cabal Coffers, Library of Alexandria, Bazaar of Baghdad, and Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale, and then also Arena. Just like we ran out. Like you couldn't make one of these. You couldn't make one of these Vicious Workshop. Just like round it out that way. Maybe too close to Cabal Coffers. I don't know. Whatever.
Maybe a little too risky. That card probably have to cost a lot.
Just make it a 3-mana. Like, who cares, right? You could balance it. It's just Arena in a cycle with 4 lands that iconic otherwise is a little weird.
There was a Spell Shaper cycle of spells from a different color. So, as an example, Dreamscape Artist. Do you remember this one?
The Artiste, yes.
Yes, the Artiste. It was a blue. It was 2 mana 1/1, and then it was 2 and a blue. Activate, discard a card. Harrow.
Yeah.
So there you go. Fire Fright Mage, which it's a pretty bad red card, but I don't think bad enough for you to play. 1 mana 1/1, 1 and a red. Tap, discard. Target creature can't be blocked this turn except by artifact creatures and or red creatures. Ooh, buddy.
You're better off just attacking with your 1/1. Just attack with that, and the other thing you're going to make unblockable instead.
Sophic Centaur. Not even I remember this one. Ooh, excuse me, hiccups. Okay. 4 mana 1. Oh boy, 4 mana 1/1's not a great start. 2 GG tap. You gain 2 life for each card in your hand. That's Gerard's Verdict.
Gerard's Wisdom.
Tough when you have Gerard's Wisdom. Tough when you have to discard a card.
Yeah, that's not that much fun. Cedric, you're a better game designer than you give yourself credit for.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, that's not that much fun. Next card.
Ridged Kusite. Ridged Kusite, excuse me. Black 1/1. 1 in a black, discard a card. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. Here to muck up combat.
What is that? What is that a spell shaper of?
I don't know. I'm just telling you, these are what Nick Miller gave me, and he's always right. So
okay.
And then Ghost Tactician, 5 mana 2/5, white, tap, discard. Creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn.
Just need to do +1/+0 twice in that.
Apparently, this cycle's lame. I'm moving on. Rare star suspend creatures. Now I'm into this cycle.
Okay.
Banalish Commander, 4 mana human soldier lord, 3 and a white. Banalish Commander's power and toughness are each equal to the number of soldiers you control. Suspend X, which was X white. X can't be 0. Whenever a time counter is removed from the Banalish Commander, while it is removed from the game, put a 1/1 white soldier creature token into play. You may remember this cycle from such hits as Aeon Chronicler, aka the Chronic, which was the card drawing machine.
Mm-hmm.
There was also Roiling Horror, which you would not remember because it was not good. What did this one do? This one, suspend was X, black. Whenever a time counter is removed from it, target player loses a life and you gain a life. Detritivore, which a lot of people loved and I found to be unplayable, was 3 suspend X. X was X, 3 and a red. And every time you remove a time counter, blow up a non-basic. Super fun. And then Fungal Behemoth, which was XGG for suspend. Whenever you remove a time counter, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature.
I love the Detritivore. It's just like, oh, you're getting Stone Rain every turn. That sucks, huh? What's causing that? It's like that thing over there. Not allowed to.
The thing you can't stop.
Not allowed to interact with it.
The thing you won't play Pool for Eternity for because it's not good enough to do that.
Yeah. So
I'm a huge. You're gonna find this was like when I was winning a lot at Magic, especially when the next set came in, which was the set with. So wait, no, this was Ravnica. Ravnica was before this. So yeah, Detritivore was really good at blowing up Karuz. I remember that, and Shocklands. But the Chronic was just my that's my jam.
Yeah, anyone who has like misgivings about who questions my misgivings about forecast, just look at these. I mean, this is kind of like this is sort of the forecast experience, except there's actually an end to it. I kind of like these designs in some respects, though. Like, it is cool that instead of suspend just being like it's a countdown, the card's just not doing anything, for it to do something while it's suspended, to care about the length of time it's suspended, and then to enter the battlefield and then care about the characteristic that was being modified while it was being suspended. That's cool. Like, that's actually like an effort to make the mechanic something greater than just a countdown. So if you're gonna do it, I like these cards a fair bit.
Let's go to the Tricolor Wedge Legendary Dragons. I'm not going to go over each one of these. Oros the Avenger, Intet the Dreamer, Teneb the Harvester, Numat the Devastator, and Vorosh the Hunter. They were like Jeskai, Mardu, Jeskai, Abzan, all like the enemy ones.
Yeah, they're homages to the invasion cycle, which were language didn't exist back then, but they were like Bant, Grixis, Naya dragons. So this is like the other 5.
We had color shifted reprints from cards in Time Spiral's bonus sheet. So this is where I'm going to come after you. This one, I don't think you're going to go 5 for 5, but I really want you to.
Okay.
And I'm going to give you a little help here because the card name's not really going to tip you off, I don't think. And I don't feel like it's fair to play the game that way. So I'm going to actually tell you like the text of the card because I'm a pal. Okay?
Okay.
Malak of the Dawn. Does that do anything for you?
No.
Okay. 2 white, 2/4 angel, flying, white, regenerate Malak of the Dawn.
Is that supposed to be giant slug?
Incorrect.
Okay, hit me.
I believe it's Ghost Ship.
Ghost Ship! Jesus, of course. Wow. And I feel embarrassed not getting that one.
Next up,
Ghost Ship.
take your free W here. Piracy Charm.
Funeral Charm.
Dune Rider Outlaw.
I don't know what that card does.
All right, black, 1/1. Pro green. At end of turn, if Dune Rider Outlaw dealt damage to an opponent this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on it.
Whirling Dervish.
Yes, sir. Prodigal Pyromancer.
Prodigal Sorcerer.
Okay, now here's this one. I don't know what's gonna happen there. I'm very excited. I think it's pronounced Fadaya Seer.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Let me get the text. 1 and a green, 1/1. Tap. Draw a card and reveal it. If it isn't a land, discard it.
Is that Sinbad?
Wow.
Yeah.
My man.
That was satisfying.
My man. All right, back in the game.
Yeah. Ghost Ship is
Right.
that's haunting to me that I didn't have that one. Super embarrassing. But 4 for 5 is not that bad.
All right, I'm going to come at with you with the uncommon enemy colored slivers with ability from a card from before sharing the color pie.
Okay.
It's a lot of words, I know.
Hold on, what's this cycle again? Oh, 5 made up cards. Okay, cool. I'll do my best.
Yeah. All right, Necrotic Sliver.
Is that Vindicate Sliver?
That's correct.
Okay.
It is a play off of Vindicate. Cautery Sliver. If you don't know what the sliver is, I will assist you.
I don't know the sliver.
Okay, so Cautery Sliver. Let me make sure I can find it here as I scroll. Oh, come on. Okay. You'll get it for sure now, because you definitely played the homage. Red, white, 2/2. All slivers have colorless, sacrifice this creature. This deals 1 damage to target creature or player. All slivers have colorless, sacrifice this creature. Prevent the next 1 damage that would be dealt to target sliver or player this turn.
Goblin Legionnaire Sliver.
There he is.
Yeah.
Frenetic Sliver.
Frenetic Ifrit Sliver.
3 for 3. Dark Heart Sliver.
Dark Heart of the Woods Sliver.
4 for 4. And this one I don't know the answer to, which means that I would actually, if you get this correct, I will take away the strike on the Ghost Ship.
Okay.
Dormant Sliver.
Oh, I don't know the text box.
Okay, 2 green, blue, so 4 mana, 2/2. All slivers have Defender, and when this creature comes into play, draw a card.
Oh my god. Is that Jungle Barrier Sliver?
Ooh, that's what it is. I'm Googling. Because Jungle Barrier is from Apocalypse, right?
Yes.
Defender, yes. Jungle Barrier Sliver.
Oh,
Look at you.
Wow. Really fun to turn all your slivers into walls. That's a game that's going to end.
Okay.
Okay.
Now you are undefeated now. That wipes out the mistake you made earlier because I couldn't figure out what that card was. Alrighty, We're moving on. We had common slivers featuring ability not usually in its color. So Poultice Sliver, gave regenerate to slivers. White doesn't have regenerate. Synchronous sliver gave vigilance to all slivers. That card was blue. Spitting sliver gave first strike. Spitting sliver was black. Battering sliver gave trample. Battering sliver was red. And reflex sliver gave haste. And green, at least then, didn't have very many haste creatures. Obviously, the game has changed quite a bit, where it has quite a bit of haste now.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had some red monocolored split cards. These are the only split cards in the set for some reason. That's a quote from Nick Miller. He doesn't quite understand. That's fair. We had Dead Gone, Rough and Tumble, and Boom Bust. So for some reason, red is the only color that got split cards.
Those are
if
all
you want to
hitters.
talk about this cycle, those are all good cards.
Yeah, those are all tournament cards.
But why didn't any other colors get split cards?
I don't know. Is it because red is the least flexible or least modal color, and so it's like interesting to give them modal cards? You're mucking up the color pie. I couldn't even guess. I have no idea what these are doing.
Yeah, I have no clue. Black spell. Oh, you'll like these. Black spells that opponents can pay something to counter.
Cool.
So Punisher spells. Here we go. Let's go to black here on Mythic Spoiler. Dash Hopes.
No clue.
Remember this one? Okay, here it comes. Black. When you play Dash Hopes, any player may pay 5 life. If a player does, counter Dash Hopes. Counter target spell.
Okay.
Okay, so counter spell, except it's not. Phantasmagorian, which you know. Kind of. You kind of know it.
Is that the Manaless Dredge thing?
Yeah, so this card, here's what this card does. 5 black, 6/6. When you play Phantasmagorium, any player may discard 3 cards. If a player does, counter it. Discard 3 cards, return Phantasmagorium from your graveyard to your hand. Okay, super fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then Temporal Extortion, black. So gonna need a lot of swamps. When you play Temporal Extortion, any player may pay half his or her life rounded up. If the player does counter it, take an extra turn after this one.
Okay.
This is a lame cycle.
Yeah, it's not that interesting because, like, when your opponent takes another turn, often you lose a lot of life. So it's not that... the decision there is not that great.
Or your opponent's behind and they play Temporal Extortion and you're just like, cool. Or you're like, I'll take 10
I'll take
kill
10.
you.
Tap kill you, yeah.
Yeah, so there's that.
Punisher card's hard to get right.
Last cycle here is the white creatures that require bouncing your own creatures. White Mane Lion, 2 mana 2/2. You had to pick up one of your own. Just one. Stormfront Riders, you had to do 2. And then Old Dust Elemental, card I lost to in a 2 HG PTQ. In the top 4. 2 white, 6/6. Flash. Flying Fear. When Dust Elemental comes into play, return 3 creatures you control to their owner's hand. I don't know if this is a good cycle or not, and I don't really care. So I'm putting a wrap on the cycles right now so we can get to our award show. But before we take a break, any thoughts you'd like to share on these cycles?
I mean, they're not even really cycles, right? They're just cards. I think it's overly charitable to call some of these cycles. And that's part of the issue with the set, right? It's just like it's too much of, all right, the top level thing is what if we do a bunch of weird stuff? But because that asks you to do a bunch of just like individually weird, discrete things, these cycles don't really come through as cycles. They just sort of seem like individual designs. I like the line okay. That's like, there's plenty of applications for it. You can kind of play it at face value. There's some combo applications, whatever. That's a fine card. That doesn't mean you're supposed to make 3 different versions of it. There's just not that much design space there.
I would agree with that. It doesn't do a lot for me. It just kind of is what it is. And with that, because I don't want to talk about it anymore, I want to start doling out awards and get this podcast over with. We're going to take a short break. When we do come back, it is time for the award show where I'm sure Damnation will win at least one. See you soon. Taking a quick break from the pod to let you know that if you are looking to sell your Magic the Gathering cards, it's never been easier over at StarCityGames.com. And with a 30% store credit bonus and the fastest turnaround time in the industry, why would you go anywhere else? You can use our buy list function. You can do a little ship plus sell. You can come to us, or heck, if your collection's big, we can come to you. StarCityGames.com/sell is where you're going to want to head for more information. One more time, that's StarCityGames.com/sell, SELL, for more information. And now, back to the pod. All right, it's awards time. And that drop I've asked for. We don't have it just yet, but we'll get it. We'll get a good drop. We're also, at some point, we're going to get some new entrance music for this podcast because the music we have for it, let's just call it what it is. It's not good.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to get some new music for the podcast, too. You got to abide by like rules and stuff. You can't do what I did in my podcast and just use any song you want to and hope no one cares. So we'll get some different music at some point. We hear you, fans. Let's start with the Oko Thief of Crowns Award for best card in the set. Nominees: Damnation, Aeon Chronicler, Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, and Simian Spirit Guide. Talk to me.
Just on raw power level, I think the best card in the set is Simian Spirit Guide. I think if you're looking for what card would influence the average standard format the most, Damnation or Chronicler would both be good choices. Probably Damnation would get the nod for me. But I also think that Urborg is a respectable answer too. Multi-format superstar, does a lot of like, it is kind of the quintessential card of the set in some respects. Like, it is a weirdo that does some weird stuff, but it has a ton of constructed applications as well.
I'm a little torn here. It's not the Chronicler. I don't think it's Damnation. Even though Damnation is like iconic, people love it. And, you know, maybe Wrath of God was supposed to be black, maybe not. I don't know. They can both exist, and they do. For me, it's between Spirit Guide and Urborg. Because if you think about Urborg initially, everyone kind of penned it as a one of. Then you realize that you could play more of this card because it was really important in the Mystical Teachings decks for Corlash and Tendrils of Corruption. And then it was like a card that you wanted to play a lot of copies of due to the Dark Depths decks. So you could play Urborg like on 1 and then Dark Depths plus Hexmage on 2. And then we saw it as like a 3 or 4 of the Eldrazi decks. And so all of a sudden, like, this card has become this weird thing where it's like, it is totally acceptable to play multiple copies of this card. And it's very good. Now, there are spots where it's like, I mean, the spots feel like they're few and far between of when it's bad, but they do exist. And I do want to ask the question. Even though Simian Spirit Guide was, I think, recently banned finally in Modern,
Yeah.
I think that's true. How good was Simian Spirit Guide really? Because, like, I think a lot of people expected Simian Spirit Guide to be, like, out of bounds, all this other stuff. But, like, how often does Simian Spirit Guide actually do the thing where it's like, this is the problem, it needs to go? Because my answer to that question is actually not that much, but maybe my memory is incorrect.
I think they're connected issues. I mean, there's a lot of cards in Magic's history that, like, are just sort of problems on their own. They're really good on their own as lock pieces. And shoving them through ahead of the schedule is even more powerful. So is the issue Simian Spirit Guide and Chromox, or is it Chalice of the Void and Blood Moon? It's like a little bit of both. I think it's hard to sort of disentangle the issues. But I think just like free mana that's not a spell, that, you know, can't be countered, whatever. It's just like really problematic design space. I do think you touched on something really salient with Urborg. There are not a whole lot of lands in Magic's history that are legendary that people played 4 copies of just because the card was important enough to play 4 copies of. Not some like Flagstones of Trocare, oh, if I draw 2, I do the thing. But just like, this card's powerful enough for me to play 3 or 4 copies, just for what it allows me to do. You're really looking at, I mean, after Tolarian Academy and Gaia's Cradle and Sarah Sanctum, are there really any other examples?
Well, in the Eldrazi era, Eye of Ugin.
Sure. Yeah, that's fair.
And I'm sure there are some that I'm missing. Well, I actually can't say that. I can't say I'm sure.
Caracas, I guess. But that's more of a defensive card than a proactive one.
I think there are some metagames, like Death and Taxes used to play like 3 Caracas. Which, okay, that made some sense. And like Knighted Reliquary decks would sometimes play 2, which again, okay, like one might get wastelanded. You want a second one to go get. Or maybe you want to draw a second one with a higher frequency because Reanimator is a big deal. Okay, sure. But your point remains, and your point is valid insofar as there's not a lot of lands, legendary lands, that you want to play like 3 or 4 copies of. And Urborg eventually became one that checked that box where I think initially people were like, yeah, of course I'm going to play 1. The first one's kind of free. Well, it's like, well, what if you play a second one? It's pretty important. What if you play a third one? Well, what if you draw multiples? Well, who cares? Because the first one's so important. Stuff like that.
I think I'm going to vote for Urborg. Like, most of the decks that played Simian Spirit Guide, it could literally just be Elvish Spirit Guide or Lotus Petal or, like, you know, whatever. There's a bunch of different examples of it. Whereas Urborg is its own thing. It feels like a very time spiral block design. And it's been massively influential across numerous formats.
My vote is Urborg.
All right, Urborg it is.
All right, Carnival of Souls Award for worst card in the set. Let me get a mythic spoiler here, baby. We're gonna start things off. So Miller, this is the one that I didn't really vet, but I trust him. Let's start off with Healing Leaves.
Okay.
See if I can find it.
It's probably Healing Salve, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's green Healing Salve.
Okay.
Okay. Time Crafting. I'm gonna guess that's a blue card. Could be red. Come on, give me a little help here. I really don't want to Google it. Okay, Time Crafting. Time Crafting. X and a red. Choose one. Remove X time counters from target permanent or suspended card, or put X time counters on target permanent with a time counter or on it or suspended card. Pretty lame.
Yeah, not a lot to do there.
Bog Serpent.
Okay.
It can't be Bog Serpent. This is a time shifted card. 6 mana, 5/5. Bog Serpent can't attack unless defending player controls a swamp. When you control no swamps, sacrifice Bog Serpent.
Oh, it's like
Can't be
Sea
boggy.
Serpent, but
Yeah, it can't be boggy.
no, that card's so
okay.
bad.
It's bad. Let's see. Dichotomy. 7 blue. That's a lot. 9 mana, 7 blue. Suspend for 3. Suspend cost is 1 blue. For each tapped non-land permanent target opponent controls, search that player's library for a card with the same name as that permanent and put it into play under your control. That player shuffles his or her library. That card's horrible.
It's pretty bad. Pretty bad.
Okay. Because that one, it's not tough to see coming. All right, I'm not going to tap anything. It's your turn. Cool, that didn't do anything. Is it my turn? And then whites, we have a card called Retether, which was 3 and a white. Return each aura card from your graveyard to play. Only creatures can be enchanted this way. I mean, that's a play off of Replenish, even though it's significantly worse. So I'm not going to give it to Retether. I'm sure there's a world that some deck actually wants that card. My pick is Dichotomy, which is awful.
Bog Serpent. Even if you know your opponent's playing black, the card's not playable.
Okay.
So
Okay.
there you go.
All right, here we go. Best role player, Doomblade Award. Got a lot of options again this time because there's a lot of time shifted cards. Let's start with white. Calcidurum, which is color shifted Blastodurum. Proffery Nodes, which is color shifted Drop of Honey. Magus of the Tabernacle. Sinew Sliver, which is color shifted Muscle Sliver. Sunlance, those are the white cards. Blue cards, Body Double, Magus of the Bazaar, Pongify, Piracy Charm. Black cards, Imp's Mischief, which I have a story about. Phantasmagorian, that's it for black. Red cards, Keldon Marauders, Sting Scourger, Sulfur Elemental, Rough Tumble, Dead Gone. Green cards, Kavu Predator, Harmonize, Keen Sense, Seal of Primordium, which is the color shifted Seal of Cleansing. Patrick, what say you?
Well, it's interesting. Something that really jumps out at me about that list is like when you do messing around with the color pie as the hook of the set, you're going to end up with a lot of role players because they're just going to be the only card that allows your color to do something. Like if you're a green deck that's just looking to draw cards in bulk, there's no replacement for Harmonize. So, and there's like a lot of examples of that sort of thing on that list. For me, this is a personal, like, this is speaking to like me, the Magic player, the competitive person. I believe perhaps the most underplayed card of all time, or like on the short list, is Proffery Nodes. Drop of Honey is a completely busted card, and giving it to a more powerful color that like can do powerful things absent creatures. I think this card has been like woefully underplayed over the course of its life.
Is that your pick?
Yeah, I think this card's busted, and no one ever plays with it.
Okay. All right. I'm not going to fight you.
Like I said, it's
Sure,
definitely
Ward.
a biased pick. Like I know there's like objectively better selections on that list, but come on. This thing is just outrageous. No one ever plays with it.
I think I'm going to pick Harmonize just because it's not an effect that green gets.
It's a
But
great
it doesn't
choice.
really see play anymore.
I think Harmonize is probably the right call.
I'll tell you what, it's all a lot of standard play. All right, here's my Imp's Mischief story really quick before we get to the next award. You ready?
Ready.
I'm in a teachings mirror in Block Constructed in Columbus. Okay, I'm not going to name the name of the player, but I will say, you ever play against someone in a PTQ? The answer to this question is yes. You ever play against someone in a PTQ who's like fine, but you know you're better, and so if we just play a long game, they're probably going to screw up somewhere and you're going to win.
Yes, I do know the experience
Okay.
you're talking about.
Yeah, like you're good, you're well tested. It's like round 4 of the PTQ, you're both 4-0, and it's like, all right, I don't mind playing against this person 4-0. I wouldn't be upset if I lost to them, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna win because I'm just better than them, and also we're playing like a mirror match, which is decision intensive. Now, I'm not some teachings expert, you know, I'm not your Jerry Thompsons or your Paul Cheons of the world, so I was fine at playing teachings, nothing special. Jerry helped me along the way, but I didn't really have a lot of success in Time Spiral Block with teachings. I generally played Green White Enforcer. So I'm deep in a teachings mirror. We're both teachings for teachings. Ancestral visions are going off, right? All this stuff. So I've drawn an Imps Mischief. My opponent has not drawn an Ancestral, right? We're getting kind of thick of it. My Imps Mischief's kind of burning a hole in my pocket. And I've got Nurse's Factory going.
Mm-hmm.
And we both have Nurse's Factory going, so we're trying to get an advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think my opponent casts a Slaughter Pact on an Urza's Factory token of mine.
Okay.
And I go, I'm going to Imps Mischief it over to your token. Because I know what's going to... Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I know what's going to happen. Untap, draw, you lose.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even think about their token dying. Just your Slaughter Pact resolved. You didn't even think about it. Just bong. And that was extra gratifying. That's a how'd your match go? Let me tell you to your friends after the match. I just Imps Mischief the Slaughter Pact for no reason in quotes because I knew my opponent wouldn't pay the upkeep.
Sometimes I'm sad that you and I did not PTQ in the same place at the same time. I think that we would.
I was the biggest asshole, dude. I'm like not proud of it, but I kind of look on it like a little fondly because I just loved it. But I was the biggest asshole.
Yeah, I played in a PTQ once where I got 3 different people game losses, and I went 4-3. Very proud of that one. And a guy he's like opening round, you know. He keeps 7 on the play. All right, I got my 7. And he goes, turn 1, just puts out of his hand, puts an unglued goblin token onto the table and goes, this is my mountain proxy.
Ooh, you can't. No.
Yeah, he
No.
was showing the door. That guy was very obviously cheating. Show the door immediately.
Out. Get out of here.
And that was one of 3 game losses. We would have gotten along, I think, just fine, I think.
Have you ever heard? Okay, so we have stories. Do you know I don't want to name his name because I know he listens to the podcast. Let's just say, just so that you know, because you'll get this reference. He's got the Cali mentality.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Of course.
Do you know the Fetchland story?
I do.
Opponent on the draw puts Fetchland into the graveyard.
It's just like you discarded the hand size.
And you just discard the hand size. And person and they're like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, it says tap sack. You didn't do that. So you discarded and it's my turn. And it's like, I never had that in me. And I had a lot in me.
Yeah. Yeah, so you discarded a hand size is a wild one. You know that Matt...
It says right there, tap sack, pay a life. He did none of those things. Is what he told the judge. And the judge is just like, you gotta stop. And he's like, it says tap sack. It says tap sack.
You know Matt Place, who worked on this set, to sort of circle back to Planar Chaos here. You know he was the OG of that. He invented the first one.
Talk to me.
So the trick was, back in the day, someone draws a card for their turn, and you go, let me know when I can lightning bolt you. And like a lot of it was pretty common in 1996 or whatever. Your opponent would just want to like fire to lightning bolt you at random times. You know what I mean? But obviously, the better players knew you're supposed to save your lightning bolt for there being a creature on the table or whatever. So the trick was you go, let me know when I can lightning bolt you, and your opponent would be like, oh sweet, they're just gonna like use a lightning bolt for no reason, and they go, all right, you can lightning bolt me now, and then he goes, okay, so you pass priority in your main phase, I'm passing priority 2, my turn. You just time walk them. So it's funny to me going back to some of these stories because I think some of it's a function of digital play and some of it's the culture. But when people talk about like, oh, it's just like it's so soft, you can get away with so much stuff now, and like no one's held to the rules or whatever. And I think there's a little bit of truth to that. I think that like I wish the rules were a little bit stricter in some spots, and I think it does give some opportunity for people to like angle shoot and get away with things and whatever. But trust me, like we played back then. It's so much worse the way that we're talking about now. I know we're laughing about it. Part of the reason we're laughing about it is because it's so different than it is now. But it's not good. Just let me know when I can lightning bolt you. What color is your mongrel? Just all of it. You know what I mean? It's not really the game we're trying to play. Did you discard to hand size? You put your wooded foothills in the graveyard? Okay, discard to hand size?
That's weird. It's my turn. I don't know why you wouldn't just play that and get a land.
Yeah. Thawing glaciers. I'll thawing glaciers, and then I'll just like I'll cut my deck on top of your permanent that's troublesome. Just like vindicate you and also keep your card. We were around for all of it. It's not good. So just trust us.
No,
it's better.
No,
it's better to be a little lax than the alternative.
I miss it. If you played against me in Kamigawa block and you missed a trigger, which was impossible not to do with all the triggers in Kamigawa block, you weren't getting that one back.
Yeah, it was. I think Kamigawa block was about the time where I started like I don't have it in me anymore. I'm just not good enough. I'm not winning these tournaments doing this stuff anymore, so I just gotta like ease off.
I won like 3 or 4 PTQs during Kamigawa block. It's like Tell Your Tales, you better not forget. You play a Spirit Arcane spell, you better not forget.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be a problem. Like Waxmane Baku, you needed one more counter. That's a shame.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's tough. That is tough. Moving on. Oboro, Palace in the Clouds, one of in the set. Nominees, Mana Tithe, Piracy Charm, Sting Scourger, and Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth. I know my winner. Who is yours?
Sting Scourger.
Correct.
One of the greatest goblins of all time.
Don't want to play multiples. Perfect one of to search up with Matron.
Yep.
Easily done. Earl the Miststalker Award for that card is from that set, ? Seal of Primordium, Wild Pair, and Rada Hair to Keld, which actually sees play in Commander, apparently. My answer is Seal of Primordium here.
No, because that's for me, it's Rada. Because Seal of Primordium is just like, oh, that's like a time shifted card, and maybe it makes sense in the color pie, maybe not, but that's sort of the hook of the set. Yeah, I could put that one. Rada is just like a normal card that works. It's really out of place here. That's my vote.
All right, fine. Okay, this one I definitely know my answer for. Mystic Confluence Award for Best Cube Card in the set. Nominees. Simian Spirit Guide should not be on this list. It's never in cubes. So I'm removing that. That's a typo. Nominees here, I have 2. Damnation and Mana Tithe.
Mana Tithe.
It's not even close, man. It's Mana Tithe by so much.
The best stories. It's the
for
best,
the memes.
It's the best stories. Cube is all about stories, and that card produces maybe the best stories of any card.
Char Rumbler time.
So many to choose from. This is a set full of Char Rumblers.
Yeah, it's not good. So I'm going to go with those horrible black cards we went over. Dash Hopes, Temporal Extortion, Phantasmagorian. But also there's one that Miller found that I had never seen before. Or at least it's been a long time. Shrouded Lord. You know this one?
I do not.
Okay, here it comes. See if I can find it. Apparently it's time shifted, so you might know the other card. Black, Sorcery. Target opponent chooses a card in your graveyard. You may pay a black. If you do, repeat this process except the opponent can't choose a card already chosen for Shrouded Lore. Then put the last chosen card into your hand.
Okay.
That card's horrible.
It's pretty bad, yeah.
Those are my options.
It's regrowth. It's regrowth for 10 mana, or it's edict regrowth. It's edict regrowth, which is not that good.
Or it can be some of those Black Punisher spells.
Usually the worst card in your graveyard is a lot worse than the best card in your graveyard.
Oh, is that true? Oh, okay. Better have a Cabal Coffers or something. I'm going with Shrouded Lore because I think that card's awful, but you can choose yours.
I'll go with Shrouded Lore.
Questing Beast Award for novel on a card. 3 nominees.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is blue. We're going to start with the white card here. Voidstone Gargoyle. 3 white, 3/3. Flying. As Voidstone Gargoyle comes into play, name a non-land card. Then the name card can't be played. Activated abilities of permanents with that name can't be played. Activated abilities of cards with that name that aren't in play can't be played.
What the hell is that referencing? Is that like companion post rules change hate 17 years early or something?
Just, if I name this card, don't even think about it.
Don't even think about it.
You can't do anything.
It doesn't matter where it is. The game next to me, they can't use it either.
Spell Shift.
Don't know that one.
3 in a blue. 3 in a blue. 4 mana total. Instant. Counter target instant or sorcery spell. Its controller reveals cards from the top of his or her library until he or she reveals an instant or sorcery card. That player may play the card without paying its mana cost, and then they shuffle their library. Classic blue garbage.
Yeah, so it's like a terrible counterspell or sort of a bootleg polymorph for spells?
Correct.
Okay.
And then we have Intet the Dreamer, which I think I'm going to disqualify this, but I'm going to read it really quick. Let's check out what Intet does. Oh, this one does have a lot of text. Okay, hang tight. 3 plus Teamer, so 6 mana, 6/6 flying. When Intet the Dreamer deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 2 in a blue. If you do, remove the top card of your library from the game face down. You may look at that card as long as it remains removed from the game. You may play that card without paying its mana cost as long as Intet remains in play. A lot of text, but not lame. I'm going to go with the Voidstone Gargoyle.
I think that's a fine choice. We're not even touching Torchling?
Okay. Let's go to Torchling. 3 red, 3/3, Shapeshifter. I loved this card, by the way. It was not good, and I loved it. I tried to build a lot of big red decks. Red, untap it. Red, tap a target creature, blocks it, if able. Red, change the target of target spell that targets only Torchling. Colorless, +1/-1, colorless, -1/+1. See, it's the red Morphling. Do you get it? Torchling. It's got good art for what it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
we can talk. You can talk me into Torchling.
I'll go with Intet. It's just a lot. It's a pretty simple concept, but that is just all words.
There's a million card names here for the blank award for best card name in the set. Nominees include Chronozoa, Muckdrub, Pongify, and Proffery Nodes. I'd also put Torchling in the running.
Proffery Nodes.
I'm going with Torchling for this one.
Okay.
It's a cool name, and it was a cool card, even though it wasn't good. All right, here we go. Pack Rat Award, best limited card in the set. Chronicler. Enslaved. Do you remember this thing?
Yes.
6 mana control magic, and they take 1 every upkeep.
I know. This was so sick.
Yeah, it was not particularly kind. Damnation. Now, I have memories of this card being good. Maybe I'm wrong. Null Perfusion.
I don't remember it.
This card is 4 black, enchantment. Skip your draw step. Whenever you play a card, draw a card, your maximum hand size is 2.
Oh, it's like recycle?
Yeah, I remember that card being good.
Yeah, I mean, it's not as good as Enslave.
All right. Krovak's Ascendant Hero.
Sure.
This card I'm pretty sure this is the correct answer. For those of you who don't know Krovak's, 4 white, 4/4 Human Lord. Other white creatures get +1/+1. 9 white creatures get -1/-1. Pay 2 life, return Krovak's to its owner's hand. So you couldn't kill it. It killed all your shit unless you were drafting white. And white was the best color in the set for draft. So I'm pretty sure it was Krovax. However, there were also the 5 Elder Dragons, but those were hard to cast. And then, for reasons that I don't quite understand, they just decided to time shift Pestilence for Pyrohemia, which is just 2 red. And in a turn, if no creatures are in play, sacrifice Pyrohemia, red, deal 1 to each creature and each player. And I would be willing to accept Pyrohemia being the answer here if you don't believe it's Krovax.
I would put Pyrohemia behind Enslave and Krovax.
Why did they think this was a good idea?
You just gotta let people know that, oh, you think you're nostalgic? Not really. Not as nostalgic as you think. This is what at least they made it uncommon. As opposed to Pestilence in Saga, which was a common.
Common.
Yeah,
just a common you lose.
Common perma wrath.
A couple more awards here. John Avon Award for Best Land Artwork in the Set. There's only one option, because there's only one land in the set. That's Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, so that wins by default. And then, this one I enjoy. The Aurelius Fury Award for Most Overhyped Card during Preview Season. So Miller says that it's Extirpate.
Okay.
He says he remembers very fondly people going nuts over a split-second cranial extraction, which, okay. Also in the running, Torchling, because, it's the red Morphling. And my pick, even though I might be wrong about this, I have memories of people looking at Magus of the Library and going, oh my god, it is... it is Library of Alexandria on a mana accelerate. You have got to be kidding me. And that card was not good at all.
Okay. My answer is Torchling.
Yeah?
It's so bad. And people were really into it.
It was really
They
not
were
good.
really into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my answer.
All right, let's close it out. Let's take her home. What card won the set?
Damnation. Not only is the card powerful,
I agree.
but it also represents some of the best of what the set aspires to do. It's time shifted. The art is an homage to Alpha, but it also feels like its own thing. It's appropriate for Black to have Wrath of God or sweepers of that sort. It still shows up in a variety of constructed and casual formats, and it has the frame. It is a Planar Chaos card. It has that special frame. So I don't even know what second place would be. I think I think this card is in first place by a much greater margin than you'll find in the average set.
I think it's Damnation by a lot. I remember when that card... Do you remember that card got previewed?
Yeah.
People lost their shit.
Yeah, it's cool, right? You see that and you're like, oh my god, what else is going on? Then it turns out the next best thing is green ball lightning or whatever. It's not that exciting. But Damnation, in terms of here's the bold ink, here's the thing you put on the poster, you put in the store or whatever. It really carried a lot of weight.
If the mandate from the powers that be was, hey, for Time Spiral Block, we want you guys to put something that is just an amazing card with amazing artwork that we can put in the set, or put on the posters. Lotus Bloom did it for Time Spiral, and Damnation did it for Planar Chaos. They nailed it. I think Damnation is the easy answer, just like Lotus Bloom was the easy answer last week.
I actually think that this is even easier. I think Lotus Bloom is the answer for Time Spiral, but there's a lot more competition. Here, I think Damnation it's in first by such a degree. Like I said, I don't even know what second place is.
Give the set a grade.
D plus, C minus. There's some cool stuff going on, in terms of individual designs. But like I said at the beginning, I think the confusion about what the core conceit is just too bad. You got to pick between we're moving cards around in the color they were supposed to be the whole time, or we're doing wacky stuff with the color pie. But doing both at the same time means there's just these a bunch of weird cards with a bunch of weird frames, and you had to be so invested for that to resonate with you.
I'm gonna give this a C. This reminds me a lot of going from Ravnica to Guild Pact, where it just it didn't hit the mark. Ravnica set the bar so high that the second set was almost destined to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that here, Time Spiral, as far as what they were trying to accomplish with that set, it really hit the mark of we're going back to old mechanics, old school feel. They had the time shifted cards that kind of came out of nowhere at the old border and stuff. Where it's holy shit, this is really cool. Like, you're hitting all these beats, all these notes for enfranchised players, which I was. I don't know how much it appeals to new players, but like, it was a really cool set. And we talked about that last week. So if you haven't listened to that episode, be sure to go do that. But this one, it just kind of left me wanting. I mean, again, there are some hits here. And some are more hitful hits than we may have realized at the time. You know, your Simian Spirit Guide, your Urborg, over the past 15 years or what have you. You know, it turns out those cards are very good. And they were fine at the time. But, you know, not what they've ended up being. And Damnation's like it's like the key piece. But a lot of cards from this set, I mean, there's a lot of role players, but like, what really stands out in comparison to Damnation? I love Aeon Chronicler, but you know, no one plays that card anymore. Damnation gets some play in cubes and stuff like that, and it still continues to be iconic around commander circles, I imagine, and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's not a great follow-up to what Time Spiral was and what Time Spiral achieved. And so that's why I feel like I have to give it a C.
Yeah, it is less. It feels more like here's a bunch of random ideas, whereas Time Spiral felt very like intentional, like everything was on purpose. And here it feels a lot more scattershot. Even though a lot of the architecture is similar, it's not that far removed, but those little differences add up to this feeling really incoherent in a way where Time Spiral felt like very creative, you know?
Speaking of scattershot, next week it's finally
Oh
here.
God.
Yeah. At least one episode, maybe two. I don't know what it's gonna look like. Miller's already handed me off the notes. I'm gonna have to give him the once over, maybe a twice over, because there should be a lot of them, folks. In Patrick's time in the booth for the SCG tour, both tabletop and online, he has alluded to Future Sight being maybe the worst Magic set of all time, and there's been some teases of writing articles about why. But what better way to do it than with a stone brew, not to be confused with stone bruh.
So,
third time I've made you laugh.
I don't know.
And
sorry, go ahead.
I am just enthralled to dive deep on this utter nonsense of a Magic
So
set.
I don't think it's the worst set. I want to be clear, and we'll talk about this next week on the podcast. It is definitely the most bewildering set. I think there are a handful of sets in Magic's history that are just really not that much fun and also not inspired. This is at least very inspired. There's no way that it's something you can look at it's like the Homer Simpson car or whatever. Like some people who had a lot of creative energy and thought did work on this for sure. But wow, there's just a lot. There's a lot to talk about. I'll save it for next week and maybe the week after.
We'll see how many episodes Future Sight is going to be. But until then, thank you all very much for listening to this episode of the Resleevables covering Planar Chaos. And we'll see you back here for next week, where just who even knows what's going to happen. Alrighty, everybody. That's it. Planar Chaos is in the books. Much like what we saw, at least in my opinion, what we saw when we went from Ravnica to Guild Pact. We went from Time Spiral to Planar Chaos, and I think there's a bit of a drop-off here. But again, when you make a set as good as Ravnica or a set as good as Time Spiral, it's hard to make that second set just as good. They gave it the old college try, and that's not a Strixhaven plug, though you can pre-order your Strixhaven cards on StarCityGames.com/previews. But they did give it a try. And while I don't love it as much as I ended up loving Time Spiral, look, we're not talking cold snap territory here, folks. I think there are some design flaws here that Patrick did talk about at the top, but ultimately, Planar Chaos kind of in the middle for me. Not a bad set, not a great set, and not the most memorable of sets, which is a little bit disappointing to me. But I've got a feeling Future Sight, at least the podcast, maybe I should add an S to that, podcasts about Future Sight, they should be very, very memorable. But you're going to have to wait until next week for us to begin diving into that I don't even know what word to describe what that set is, and I can't wait to see how those podcasts are going to go. But in the meantime, you can, of course, subscribe to this podcast over at Stitcher, on Spotify, Google Play, wherever you do listen to your podcast. That's where you can find the Resleevables. You can also listen to it on YouTube over at the StarCityGames.com YouTube page. Make sure you subscribe over there as well. Let's give some likes. Let's give some reviews. Let's give some thumbs up, some stars, all that stuff. Let's get the algorithm in our favor because realistically, that's all these stupid things care about. The more likes, the more stars, the more thumbs, the more ways that people can find what Patrick and I are doing here, and we would appreciate that very much. I don't think I have anything else to plug this week. I feel better, which is great as I record this outro. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Future Sight, at least one episode of Future Sight coming next week, so we'll see you back here on the Resleevables feed. Then, have a great one.